Sure. I can go any speed you want, sure. Yeah. You gotta watch the word. The question, Gail, during the Shofar blessings, I'm just going to stay seated until that's over and then stand up. Okay. Anyone to stand down?
Yes.
Oh, why did you take my stand?
I thought you said it went back.
Nope, I just said keep it down.
Oh, that's right. It's shorter.
No, like down out of the way.
Oh, geez.
Nate, is this okay for me, or do you want it lower, or is that okay? Okay, so it just, well, this will be here, so. And I can move over more this way.
Yeah, stay right there.
Okay, just trying to give room for Gail. Yeah, I'm gonna, can we just push it up just a time? Just, I'm afraid I won't be able to turn the page. There, thanks. I've heard your piano playing on the streaming. It's beautiful, by the way. Beautiful piano playing. Is it okay? Okay. And I'm not here for the first couple songs, but up here.
Yes. Yes. Lights.
Blinding is not a point.
Well, we'll get started whenever, and people will keep trickling in. Say it again. Yeah, I would say we'll give it about 5 minutes. We'll get started. Say again? Well, I'm just trying to. We never hit a 9 o'clock service before. So we're trying to give us all good. Oh, that. Perfect.
You match Benji's time. Did you know that? You match me.
Sammy's the 4th.
You match.
How did they not find her place?
It's good. Oh,
I gotta go down for just a second. Sure.
who else is also familiar?
I guess so, as long as I don't have.
You don't have to raise that. I'm doing the little guy right here. The middle guy. Yes, there's a family service happening outside. whenever you are. Yeah. All right. Shana Tova, everybody. We are wishing you already a very happy and healthy 5783. We're going to begin by singing. What a beautiful way to remind us of this notion that we have in our tradition that we, no matter what time it is, can return. We can find that version of ourselves that we seek. We're going to keep on singing as a way to start our service with another beautiful song.
Amen.
Beautiful. Thank you, Shari and Neem. We're going to get to hear them a number of times throughout the service this morning. And you are wonderful. Thanks, everyone. I'd like to begin our service this morning with a quick story that in a mountain village in Europe many centuries ago, there was a leader who wondered what legacy he might be able to leave for his townspeople. At last, he decided to build a synagogue. No one saw the plans for the building until it was finished. When the people came in for the first time, they marveled at its beauty and completeness. And then someone asked, "Wait, where are the lamps? How will this place be lighted?" The leader pointed at the brackets, which were all throughout the synagogue walls. Then he gave each family a lamp, which they were to bring with them every time they came to the synagogue. Whenever you gather here at the synagogue, each family, each person brings with them their own special light. And for our synagogue and community to be at our best, we need to see the beauty of each person's unique and bright light. The synagogue building is beautiful and important, but it's the people that bring light into the space. Only when we are together with our community can we really cast out darkness. For the past 2 high holiday seasons, this room has sat empty as we offered our prayers and yearnings outside and online. While there is immense beauty to praying under the trees outside, there is something extremely special about being back in this room for at least a few services. So it is with great joy as we begin 5783 that each of us brings our own unique and meaningful light to this holy space. May we in this new year continue to be a light to those around us, to our entire community, and to the world. Then we will truly be able to say the beautiful words we just sang, Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu kekedem. Help us to turn ourselves back to you, O God, to that best version of ourselves, to our own community. And may these be our sweetest days yet. We're going to start our service on page 110 with the singing of Ma Tovu. Page 129. May it be your will, Adonai, our God and God of our ancestors, that we discipline ourselves in Torah and devote ourselves to mitzvot. Help us to keep far from sin, to master temptation, and to avoid falling under its spell. Let's read together. May our darker passions not rule us, nor evil companions lead us astray. Rather, strengthen in us the voice of conscience, prompt us to deeds of goodness, and bend our every impulse to your service. Today and every day, let us be gracious, loving, and compassionate in your eyes and in the eyes of all humanity. Baruch atah Adonai, gomel chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael. Blessed are you, Adonai, whose love for the people Israel is revealed in acts of goodness. Continue with Esa Enai. You can find that on page 131. Let's read together on the top of page 139. 139. Beloved friend, who calls us to conscience, remind us of our own strength, invites us to grow, empowers us to act. Cosmic mysteries are yours, but the earth is ours, to tend and heal as best we can. Beloved partner in creation, we join in our strength with yours to make you real and true. We're going to invite everyone, if you are able, to please rise for the Chatzi Kaddish. You can find that on the next page, 141.
vit gadol, vit kadosh, shemi Amen. Me'alma tivrach Yerudai, v'yamelich malchutai.
וחייכון וביומנו וחייכון בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב
ואמרו
אמן יהי שמרה ויברך ויעלם עולמי עליה יתברך
יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי קודשו
לעילה מן כל בירתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן ימה
ואמרו
אמן.
Continue with the Baruch Hu.
Lai, 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 lai. 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 Lai, 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 Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam ha'ed. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai,
May be seated for a moment. On page 142 in the middle of the page, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvarei choshech, oseh shalom uvarei et hakol, or olam b'otzor chayim, orot me'ofei amar vayechi. Source of our blessings, eternal our God, your power fills the cosmos, shaping light, creating darkness, making peace, and fashioning all things. Infinite light is preserved in life's treasure house. Light from darkness, said God, and it was so. Continue on page 146 together. Ahava rabah havtanu Adonai Eloheinu, chemla gadola v'tera chamalta aleinu. Ba'avur avotenu v'imotenu shabatchu v'cha v'talamdemchu kem chayim ken techonenu utlamdenu Avinu ha'av harachamam hamrachem rachem aleinu v'tein b'libeinu l'havhin l'azkil l'shmoa l'ilmod u'lalmed l'shmor v'la'asod u'lkayem et kol divrei Talmud Toratecha ba'ahava. Let's switch to the English so we can read together. Love abundant, love unstinting. Our God, you have enfolded us in love. Tender compassion beyond all bounds, your precious gift. Our fathers and mothers gave you their trust, and you gave them Torah, laws by which to live. For their sake, teach us as well. Grace us with your guidance. Loving Father, merciful Mother of us all, grant us clear understanding that we may listen, learn, and teach, preserve, practice, and fulfill with love every lesson of your Torah. May learning your Torah light up our eyes, and may our hearts embrace your mitzvot. Unite us in love and reverence for you, that we may never feel ashamed of our deeds. On 148. Bring us in peace from the four corners of the earth. Lead us with upright pride to the land that is ours. For you are a God of miracles and wonders. From all the peoples of the earth you sought us out and brought us near to your great and enduring truth. So with love we acknowledge and proclaim that you are one. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava. Our praise to you, Adonai. You have singled out your people Israel with love. And I'll invite you, if you're able, to please rise. Shema is on the next page, 150.
Shema
Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam. You may be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha, vidibarta bam, vishiftecha beveitecha, uvlechtecha vaderech, ushokbecha uvkumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, vehayu latotafot bein einecha, uchtavtam Amezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kedoshim le'Elohem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem Me'eretz Mitzrayim, v'hiyot lahem Elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem. We learn from Pirkei Avot, a Jewish ethical volume, that there was once a scholar named Ben Zoma. Ben Zoma says, "Who is rich? The one who is happy with what he has. The one who is, as they say in Hebrew, sameach bechelko, happy with his portion of the world. The rich person isn't rich because of the amount of stuff he has, and the rich person is the one who can find happiness even when the cards are stacked against him. It is the person who can find happiness even though he's not where he wants to be when he's perhaps turning 50, even though the book that she's been working so hard hasn't yet been published, even though she's the only one of her friends who is still single, even though things don't seem to go quite right. Mi Chamocha is a prayer of gratitude that the Israelites sang and that they uttered it as they crossed the sea. Who is like you, God, helps us to see our blessings even in such dark times. While this year was painful for many of us in many ways, The Mi Chamocha prayer reminds us that we have to take at least a few minutes to focus on gratitude. We have to find something for which we are grateful for, even if it's something small. We pause for a moment and acknowledge our gratitude. Perhaps you could just spend just a moment thinking about something that happened in this past year for which you are grateful, and maybe then we can more clearly see the blessings that surround us in this new year. So let's just take a moment to do that. We'll join in singing Mi Chamocha. You can find that on page 164. Who is like you, God, who makes miracles around us every day? One of my favorite readings to do at the high holidays. When you thought I wasn't looking, I saw you hang my first painting on the refrigerator, and immediately I wanted to paint another one. When you thought I wasn't looking, I saw you feed a stray cat, and I learned that it's good to be kind to animals. When you thought I wasn't looking, I saw you make my favorite cake for me, and I learned that the little things in life can be special. When you thought I wasn't looking, I heard you say a prayer, and I knew that there is a God that I could always talk to, and I learned to trust God. When you thought I wasn't looking, I saw you make a meal and take it to a sick friend, and I learned how important it is to care for others. When you thought I wasn't looking, I felt you kiss me goodnight, and I felt loved and safe. When you thought I wasn't looking, I saw tears come from your eyes, and I learned that sometimes it's okay to cry. When you thought I wasn't looking, I saw that you cared, and I wanted to be everything that I could be. When you thought I wasn't looking, I learned life's most precious lessons that I need to know to be a good, kind, and productive person when I grow up. When you thought I wasn't looking, I looked at you and wanted to say, thanks for all the things I saw when you thought I wasn't looking. In a few moments, we're going to recite our Amidah prayer that begins a section called Our Parents. This section of the service says, thank you, God, for all the wonderful things that my parents did that made me the person who I am today. This time of year, as we fondly remember Rosh HaShanah dinners or other family gatherings, we acknowledge our parents if they're here, and if they're no longer here, we bring them with us. We thank them for the beautiful gifts that they gave us because they are a part of who we are. So we're going to turn to page 166, and I will invite you to please rise as we turn to the Amidah, this prayer that says, thank you, God, for those who came before me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanara El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Hasdei Avot V'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo B'ahava. Moshiach u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezratzah. You may be seated.
And the choir, please come on up.
In a moment, we are going to hear the choir sing those haunting words in the Unetaneh Tokef prayer. At its core, this prayer, which we know from the line, who shall die, who by fire, who by water, who by sword, who by beast, who shall live, who shall die. This prayer at its core reminds us that none of us knows how much time we have on this earth. None of us knows when our days are numbered. We can't control that, but we can control the quality of our life, how we use the time that's given to us. And that's the beautiful aspect of this troubling prayer, that we can do tshuva, we can do repentance, we can do tzedakah, we can give charity, and we can do tefillah, we can say our prayers. And we can make this world a better place and use the time well that God has given to us. So we continue in singing that Unetaneh Tokef prayer. You can find it on page 174. Let us proclaim the power of this day, a day whose holiness awakens deepest awe and inspires highest praise for your dominion. For your throne is a throne of love. Your reign is a reign of truth. Let's read together at the bottom of the page In truth, you are judge and plaintiff, counselor and witness. You inscribe and seal, you record and recount. You remember all that we have forgotten. And when you open the book of memories, it speaks for itself. For every human hand leaves its mark, an imprint like no other, on page 176. And so the great shofar will cry, Tikiyah. A still small voice will be heard. Angels in a whirl of fear and trembling will say, behold the day of judgment, for they too are judged. In your eyes, even they are not blameless. Let's read together. All who come into the world pass before you like sheep before their shepherd. As a shepherd considers the flock when it passes beneath the staff, you count and consider every life. You set bounds, you decide destiny, you inscribe judgments.
Rosh HaShanah Yom Kippur Rosh HaShanah Yom Kippur Komo Yavrun Mechomo Yemoreun Mi Yichya Mi Yamut Mi Vikitzu Mi Lo Vikitzu Berosh Hashanah Yigateinu Yom Kippur Yegateinu Berosh Hashanah Yigateinu Yom Kippur Yegateinu Mi v'moim Mi v'ish Mi v'chav Mi v'chayo Mi v'ra'av u'mi v'tzama Mi v'rash u'mi v'magefa Berosh Hashanah Yigateinu Yom Kippur Yegateinu Berosh Hashanah Yigateinu Yom Kippur Yegateinu.
Let us read together on page 179, page 179. On Rosh Hashanah, we plunge like swimmers into a sea of words. On Yom Kippur, the sea rises, then crests, and we emerge, sealed by the wax, warmed by the fire of braided candle. The new year is like a trailhead, opening wide before us, a day of fasting, narrow and breathless, so quick to close. We contemplate a new year, and this we know. Some of us will live, and some of us will die. Some will die young, and some very old. Some by water, and some by fire. Some by sword, and some by beast. Some by hunger, and some by thirst. Some by plague, and some by earthquake. Some by stoning, and some by strangling. Some of us will feel at ease. Some will be restless. Some will have peace of mind. Some will have strife. Some will be tranquil, and some tormented. Some will be raised high, and some will be brought low. Some will have riches, and some will be impoverished. Even so, the way we act, the way we speak, the way we meet God's image in ourselves and in others, these things have great power to make our lives matter. Therefore, let us make whole the broken shards, green and thick the withering grass. Let the wind fill us with urgency for life. Let dreams give birth to justice and goodness. God of holiness, God of hope, let us glimpse your truth as we attach our hope to yours.
Glorify
There was once a storyteller who had a special talent of bringing out a point through parables. He said, years ago, when a fire broke out in the village, all the people would drop everything they were doing and they would band together to carry water from the well to put out the blaze. Once, when the villagers came to the big city, he suddenly heard a bell and bells ringing and horns blowing. "What's the noise?" he asked. "Wherever there is a fire, and whenever there is a fire, we ring the bells and blow the horns to put out the fire," came the reply. When he returned to the village, he told the elders of his great discovery. He said, "From now on, whenever there is a fire, we too, just like in the big city, will blow the horns and ring the bells, and that'll put out the fire." The next time there was a fire, the town elders started blowing their horns and ringing their bells, but of course, the fire only got worse. Before long, half the village was gone. When the villager returned to the big city, he said to the people, "How come when we rang the bells, the fire didn't go out?" And they replied, "Do you really think that bells and horns will put out a blaze? They only alert people that there is a fire. It's up to every one of us to extinguish it." It is the same, says this storyteller, with the sounding of the shofar. The sound of the shofar is an awakening call to alert us to try harder in the coming year, to turn back to the best version of ourselves. Now it is up to us to pray sincerely and to do the work to actually change. Only this will bring us closer to God. You may remember that we will be sounding the shofar in 3 sections throughout our service this morning. The first focuses on sovereignty, turning back to godliness. The second will focus on remembering our past. And the final section focuses on hope for the future. May these 3 sections wake us up and enable us to try a little harder to make real change in our lives. I'm going to invite Lindsay to join me on the bima, our Baal Tikiyah and trumpet player. And we're going to read together on page 205 in the middle of the page, where it says number 2. Dwell on each sound of the shofar. Contemplate its meaning. Tikiyah, 1 whole note. Shivarim teruah, 3 broken notes, 9 staccato notes. Tikiyah, 1 whole note. My return to the right path has the power to make me whole again. Tikiyah, once I was whole. Shivarim teruah, in the wear and tear of living I became broken and shattered. Tikiyah, may my teshuvah have the power to make me whole again. Blessed are the hearts that respond to the majestic music of the shofar. Blessed is the gift of life, the power of renewal that brings us to each day.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lishmoa kol shofar. Amen. Do it again. Amen. Thank you. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh. Amen.
Was that to your liking that time? Amen. We did
Amen.
it. Yeah. Beautiful. And if you'd like to say the calls along with me, they're at the bottom of page 206. Tikiyah, Shivarim teruah, Tikiyah, Tikiyah, Shivarim, Tikiyah, Tikiyah, Teruah, Tikiyah. Yay, Lindsay, beautifully done. Yasher koach. We'll get more of that later in the service. Thank you, Lindsay. You even got a smattering of applause, so that seems like a good thing. We're going to sing together Hayom Harat Olam. It's on page 207. page 208. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, kadshenu b'mitzvotecha, v'tein chalkenu b'toratecha, sabeinu mituvecha, samchenu b'shuatecha, v'taher libenu la'avdecha be'emet, ki ata Elohim emet, udvarcha emet v'kayam la'ad. God who is ours, God of our fathers and our mothers, lead us to holiness through your mitzvot, and may each of us find a portion of Torah that is ours. You bestow such goodness. Teach us to be satisfied and to know the joy of your salvation. Help us to serve you truly with purity of heart, for you are a faithful God whose truth stands forever. Baruch atah Adonai, Melech al kol haaretz, Mekadesh Yisrael, v'yom hazikaron. Let's read together our praise to you, Eternal One, whose power pervades all of the earth. You bring holiness to the people Israel on this day of remembrance. We join together in singing our prayer for peace and wholeness. You can find that as Sim Shalom on page 216.
Sim shalom, sim shalom, uvrecha, kein v'chesed verachamim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
We turn to page 223, and I am going to invite you to rise as we recite this very iconic prayer for the High Holy Day season, Avinu Malkeinu. We'll read this responsively. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu. Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, hear our voice. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lifanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu V'al Olaleinu V'tapenu. Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and our families. Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Dever V'cherev V'ra'av Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger. Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Kol Tsaru Mastin Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror. Avinu Malkeinu, Kodvenu B'Sefer Chayim Tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived. Avinu Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova. Avinu Malkeinu, renew us a year of goodness. Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu Vanenu, Ki Ein Banu Ma'asim, Aseh Imanu Tzedaka V'Chesed V'Hoshi'enu. Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Avinu Malkeinu,
Avinu Malkeinu,
Konenu
Avinu Malkeinu,
Avinu Malkeinu,
Avinu
Yen Manu
Seated. Shana Tova. If you'll indulge me for a few minutes, I would like to tell you a story about my dad, whose name is Nisan Barlev. Like many children born in Eastern Europe in the mid-1940s, his early childhood was tumultuous, to say the least. Under communist rule, the textile factory that my grandfather owned in Romania was no longer his, and it became quickly apparent that there was no real life left to be had for them in the city where they were living, called Galatz. So, like many families in 1948, my grandparents and my dad, whose name was Nelu at the time, applied for immigration to the new state of Israel. Finally, in 1950, the three of them were cleared to move to Israel. They made the journey, and for 2 years, surrounded by so many people making that same move, my dad and his parents lived in army barracks, large platform tents, until new housing was available. 2 years in a platform tent. I can't imagine making a move like that one. They had to leave almost all of their possessions behind. Each family was only allowed 50 pounds per family to bring. But if you were to ask my dad, who was 6 years old at the time, this was the most fun-filled adventure of his life. He loved moving to Israel. Early on, he and his neighbors were enrolled in what he described as a Montessori-style school. While my grandparents were a little reticent to jump into this, my dad was all in with Israeli culture and learning Hebrew with his friends. He had I should mention that my dad had this kind of spirit of adventure and this willingness to learn new things and adapt that stayed throughout his entire life. He was never content to sit back and rest on his laurels. He was always working hard for others through the very last day of his life. But as a child, moving to Israel was exactly his cup of tea. He loved what he described as the melting pot, so many people coming together from different places. He loved learning Hebrew and embracing a new culture. He begged his parents to let him change his name from Nelu, a Romanian name, to Nisan, an Israeli name. And while my grandparents weren't thrilled about the change, they agreed, and my dad officially became Nisan. There's a great story that he tells about playing the violin as a child. My grandmother, Haya, really wanted my dad to learn how to play the violin. My father was many things, but musically inclined was not one of them. He had no interest in the violin whatsoever. But dutiful son as he was, he schlepped that violin to school, and his mother made him practice it a lot. One day, as my dad and his friends were hitchhiking to school, because I guess that's what you did in the 1950s in Israel, he tucked his violin case behind a tree branch as they were trying to wave down a ride. When the car finally appeared, my dad and his friends jumped in, leaving the violin behind. Now, my dad claimed that this was unintentional, but any of us with kids might suspect otherwise. When they were dropped off at the end of the day, you can imagine the mix of delight and terror that he felt as he realized that the violin was actually gone. The terror was facing his mother without the violin, and the delight was that it was actually gone. My dad walked home with trepidation, unsure of how he would broach the subject, maybe even like repeating words to himself to try and work himself up to talk about it. He had a pit in his stomach, and I think we've all had that kind of feeling at some point. When he arrived at their apartment in the city of Cologne, both his parents were there, which he knew was bad news. I imagine looking pretty somber. But before my dad could say anything, my grandmother said, "Were you looking for this?" And I imagine shoved the violin back into his hands. Apparently some good Samaritan found the violin case, and then my dad had his name in there. He looked up the address and was able to bring it back to the house. Needless to say, I assume that there were a lot of scales that were practiced in the house that night. Many of you know that we lost my dad very suddenly and unexpectedly just under 2 months ago. That man exercised every day of his life, and still at 78 years old could beat any of us children in an arm wrestling competition, which he often demanded us to do. But tragically, this was his time. I have walked the path of losing a parent or a spouse with so many of you over the years, and now I share in that grief, that weight as well. But thankfully, my dad has many people who will tell his story. My mom, his loving wife of 46 years, my siblings, our family members, work colleagues, so many children in Wisconsin will keep telling his story. And in the darkness that has been these past couple of months, these stories have become a beacon of light. Those stories have reminded us of aspects of my dad that we may have otherwise forgotten. Those stories have kept us grounded in this turbulent time. Those stories will keep Nisan Bar-Lev with us forever. About a decade ago, I spoke to our congregation about the importance of knowing our stories. In a world which feels so broken in so many ways, our family stories and our communal stories and even our Jewish story can help us find the stability that we seek. It's more true in 2022 perhaps than ever before. Our stories add meaning to our lives, give us context in which to place ourselves within the larger story of our families. Not everybody's family story is a happy one, but nonetheless, knowing these stories can provide a light of hope in dark times and can give us a foundation. I've never had the good fortune of meeting my maternal great-grandparents who immigrated to Milwaukee from a small town called Sliver-Bobroysk in Russia. But there's a great story about them that exists in our family lore, and I shared with some of you at some point this story. My great-grandfather Sam and my great-grandmother Dora lived in a small apartment in Milwaukee. They kept a strictly kosher household, which was very important to Dora. To Sam, not so much. Every day, Sam would come home during his lunch break, and Dora would make this elaborate lunch prepared for him. As the story goes, that one day he came home for lunch, and for one reason or another, there was no lunch prepared for him that day. I'm not sure why the man couldn't make himself a sandwich, but that's for another day. Hungry and irritated, he stormed out of the apartment, slamming the door behind him. Dora unfazed by that. But a few minutes later, Sam came back home with a package that Dora didn't recognize. Took off his coat, he sat down at the table, and slammed down a package in front of him. He opened it up and inhaled and took a deep breath. He looked over at his wife, Dora, whose mouth was agape, eyes as wide as they could have been. There on their table sat 1 large pound of ham. My grandmother, Cookie, who was about 9 years old at the time, remembered this incident vividly. Dora let out an audible gasp. She grabbed the package of ham, ran over to their window, opened it, threw it out the second-story window, where it landed all over their neighbor's roof and stayed there for a number of weeks afterward. She then picked up a broom and started chasing her husband Sam all around the apartment, yelling about bringing tray food into their house, unkosher food into their house. She chased him until he grabbed his hat and coat and left the apartment. At that point, their daughter, Cookie, was laughing so hard that she could hardly catch her breath. According to family tradition, Sam didn't return home to the apartment until very late that night, and I would have stayed overnight somewhere if I were him. This is a story that I heard my grandmother of blessed memory tell many times throughout the course of my life. As a kid, I used to roll my eyes when my relatives would tell and retell the same stories, but eventually these stories became part of me. I internalized them. If I close my eyes, I can almost enter that apartment back in 1935, or I can imagine that platform tent in Israel in which my dad and grandparents lived. We look at pictures of our great-grandparents, and so often they look totally foreign to us, and their lives are vastly different from ours. But a story like this gives that picture a personality. It allows us to feel part of their story and gives context to our lives. These stories also remind us that we are not alone, that we belong to a story that began long before us and will continue long after us. People I have never met, yet a constant presence in my life. That's the power of these stories. As we anchor ourselves in stories and we internalize them, we make them part of us, they will provide us with direction and purpose should we feel lost, and a sense of belonging should we feel alone, and strength when we have faced challenges, trauma, and insecurity. So as we celebrate Rosh Hashanah this morning, I invite you to take a trip with me and think about your family's story. Maybe you're thinking about a parent who is no longer with us, or a grandparent who overcame many challenges to create a new life in a new country. Maybe you're thinking of a family member or a beloved spouse who was there for you in a time of need. Or maybe you're remembering a ridiculous family tradition that would be completely meaningless to anyone else, but it's important to you. Just take a moment and see if you can think of one family memory. In our 24-hour news cycle lives, in the busyness of this post-pandemic world, in our crazy day-to-day existence, perhaps we don't take the time to share our stories and our traditions with the next generation, with our kids and grandkids, our siblings and friends. But these stories are essential to our identities. There is a well-known author named Bruce Feiler who wrote an article for the New York Times a number of years ago called "The Stories That Bind Us." In it, Feiler finds himself at a family reunion, during which his father feels like his family is falling apart. This leads him to wonder, what does keep a family together? What are ingredients that make some families effective, resilient, and happy? In the article, Feiler writes, after a lot of research, a surprising theme emerged. The single most important thing that you can do for your family may be the simplest of all, and that is develop a strong family narrative. Hold on one second here. Our security team is trying to talk to us on the walkie-talkie. Okay. That's not part of the narrative. Over a number of years, Dr. Sarah Duke, a psychologist who works with children with learning disabilities, noticed something really interesting about her students. The ones who knew a lot about their families tended to do better when they faced challenges. So she and others decided to study the hypothesis carefully. They developed a measure called the Do You Know scale that asked the kids 20 questions. Examples included, do you know where your grandparents grew up? Do you know where your mom and dad went to high school? Do you know where your parents met? Do you know an illness or something really terrible that happened in your family? Do you know the story of your birth? They asked those questions to 4 families, did separate psychological testing, and found a really interesting correlation. The more children knew about their family's history, the stronger sense of control they had over their lives, and the higher their self-esteem, and the more successfully they believed their families functioned. The Do You Know scale turned out to be the single best predictor of children's emotional health and happiness, if you can believe that. Knowing stories have the power to help us feel less alone, to find direction, and to face challenge. I would argue that young and old alike, all of us need these types of stories, and we need them more now than ever. When we hear these stories of our grandparents overcoming hardship, or a parent rebuilding a life after a loss, or a close friend beating cancer, we become part of that story. Their lives impact ours even if there are generations between us, even if there are continents dividing us. It's what allows us to hear our parents' voices in our ears, guiding us, giving us direction, and perhaps saying, I love you, or just, I'm proud of you. It's what allows us to feel our closest friends' embrace, even if we're not there to receive it in person. It's what allows us to see our grandmother smile every time we smell her matzo ball soup recipe on the stove. Moreover, knowing our family's story gives us a context for our own stories. It acknowledges that we are not an island, that we come from a large narrative, and that our story is an important piece of that narrative, that the narrative would be different without us. So what can we do to anchor ourselves in a family story? We can tell our stories, and we can seek out stories we don't know. You might be thinking, I don't know much about my family of origin, or it's too painful to remember those stories. In these cases, it's really important to remember that we can also create family and family stories going forward. Family can be a close group of friends or folks from the temple with whom you connect, even beloved work colleagues. We can create family no matter what our situation is, and those stories, new or old, will help give meaning to our lives in the coming year. So maybe we can start a new tradition this year. What if we commit to spending a little bit of time tonight, if you're sitting around a Rosh Hashanah dinner table, or 10 days from now around a breakfast table, or just even walking to your car at Temple this afternoon, maybe we can commit to telling these stories to those who are closest to us, right around that table. Even if the people who are subjects of those stories have been gone for many years, we can bring them back when we tell these stories. Once we know our personal story and we have shared stories with those whom we love, we also have a responsibility to know our communal story, in this case, the story of TBS. A communal story is a second level of narrative that can give us direction and help us when we feel alone. I want to give you just a 30-second history, because I'm getting near the end of the sermon, but a 30-second history of the temple if you don't know it. You may know that Temple Beth Shalom was actually a breakaway congregation from Temple Israel here in Columbus. A group of young families, some of whom are in the congregation this morning, were so concerned about how their beloved rabbi was treated that they gathered together in the fall of 1977 and, with enormous pushback from the entire community, founded Temple Beth Shalom as a place where transparency and openness, the open window, were at its core. The congregation was first housed in the basement of State Savings Bank, and then for almost 20 years, we shared space with Eastminster Church on East Broad Street, the building that, ironically, now is Temple Israel. At Eastminster, there was a weekly job before services of rolling in the ark and rolling down the cloth covers to cover the various crosses in the sanctuary. I see some of you guys nodding. You were likely the ones who actually did the pulleying. It took a lot of volunteer energy to get the congregation up and running every week. And I know how proud our founding families are of where we are as a congregation today. One final way that we can fortify ourselves with the knowledge that we're part of a much larger story is the Jewish story, one that transcends space and time. Rabbi Ari Lorge writes, If we internalize our Jewish stories, we can look at them and feel less alone. They can help us remember that we are but the newest characters in a story that goes back to the very beginning of history. You may have seen that we are offering a bunch of new adult education classes this fall, thanks in part to the Stein-Glaser Fund. We have Melton classes and other wonderful classes. There's a bookmark in your mock store if you want to take a look, maybe not at this exact moment, but take a look at the classes. And perhaps one of those looks interesting and could help you connect to the Jewish people by better knowing our stories or our texts or our ethics. Everyone who comes before us stands with us. We hear their voices in the stories we tell. We seek them out. Perhaps this is our goal as we begin Rosh Hashanah. We begin this process of self-reflection, of change for the better, of rewriting the best version of our own story in this new year. We, with all of our faults, with all of our shortcomings, all of our problems, we are still an important part of something that is bigger than ourselves, that extends back throughout all time. So in 5783, let us become storytellers. My family and I are still feeling pretty broken right now, and I know that there are dark times ahead. But having stories of my dad's life is so comforting, and we can picture not only ourselves, but our kids in these stories as well. We are very lucky. A few months ago, my younger brother, Ari, decided to record a video interview with my dad, during which he talks about his early life and how it felt to move to Israel, what his life's aspirations were at that time. Those recordings are such a gift because they, and all of these stories, keep him with us. They keep him in our minds, and in our thoughts, and in our hearts, and perhaps most importantly, in our actions. What better time to do this for your family than right now? Share the memories, tell the stories, record the videos. It's so easy, just push the button on your phone. Enact the traditions. These are what bind us together. These are what center us in unbalanced times. These are what connect us to generations past and yet to be. May our family stories and our communal stories and our Jewish story live on throughout time and space. Our tradition teaches that days are like scrolls. We must write on them what we want to be remembered. May the stories we tell in this coming year nurture us and guide us and our families, and God willing, future generations. Together we say to that, amen. We are going to turn for a great source of Jewish stories, the Torah, to the Torah service in just a moment. We have some lovely Torah readers. We're going to invite everyone to turn to page 227, as we join together in singing Ein Kamocha, and I'm going to invite Marvin to join us on the bima, and I'll invite everyone else to please rise.
Ein kamocha ve'Elohim Adonai, Ein k'ma'asecha, malachutecha malachu, kol olamim, u'memshatecha b'chol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimlok le'olam va'ed, Adonai oth le'amo yitain, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom.
Shema
Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'lo Shemo. Lecha Adonai Hagidula v'Hagivura Hatiferet v'Chanetzach v'Chahod
Ki ho b'shamayim uvaretz, Ki ho b'shamayim uvaretz. Lecha Adonai hamacha v'hamitnaseh, Lecha you want to come get set up here? You're welcome to put your sheet right there if you like. There you go. You got the yad over there. So we're going to be doing a communal hakafot as we normally do at Rosh Hashanah, so everyone can have a chance to participate in this honor. For the first aliyah, I'm going to ask if anyone has recovered from an illness this year, or if you are recovering from an illness and you're feeling strong, the first aliyah is for you. And if you open up your book to page 230, that's where you'll find the Torah blessings, 230. So we'll do these together, and if you'd like to rise, if you're one of the people doing the aliyah, I'll invite you to do that at this time. Or you can stay seated if you're not comfortable with that breaking HIPAA. Okay, so we'll join together. 1, 2, 3. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach, Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam vaed, Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam vaed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Vayehi achar הדברים האלה, ואלוהים נישא את אברהם ויאמר אליו אברהם ויאמר הנני, ויאמר קח נא את בנך את יחידך אשר אהבת את יצחק ולך לך אל ארץ המריע ועלהו שם ועולה על אחד ההרים אשר אומר אליך. וישכם אברהם בבוקר ויחבוש את חמרו ויקח את שני בעריו איתו ואת יצחק בנו ויבקו עד שעולה ויבקם וילך אל המקום אשר אמר לו האלוהים. ביום השלישי ויישא אברהם את עיניו וירא את המקום מרחוק. ויאמר אברהם אל נעריו שבו לכם פה עם החמור ואני והנער ונלכה עד כה ונשתחוו ונשובה עליכם.
Beautiful. We're going to do the blessing afterward. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Yasher koach. Beautifully done. Nailed it. Very, very nice. For the second aliyah, I am pinch hitting reading today, so that's going to be fun. For the second aliyah, we're going to invite anyone who celebrated a big birthday or anniversary this year. If you had a big birthday or anniversary, we'll invite you, if you would like to, please rise, and we'll celebrate together with this Torah blessing. 1, 2, 3. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach, Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam vaed, Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam vaed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai Ten haTorah. Amen. Vayikach Avraham et atzei ha'olah v'yasem el Yitzhak beno v'yikach b'yado et ha'esh v'tamachelet v'elchu shnechem yachdav. Vayomer Yitzhak el Avraham aviv vayomer aviv vayomer hineni beni vayomer hine ha'esh va'etzim v'ehaseh le'olah. Vayomer Avraham Elohim yireh haseh le'olah beni ve'elchu shnechem yachdav. Vayavo el hamakom asher amar lo ha'elohim vayiven sham Avraham et hamizbeach v'aroch et ha'etzim v'yakod et Yitzhak beno v'yasehem oto al hamizbeach mima'al etzim. Vayishlach Avraham et hayado v'yikach et hamachelet lishchot beno et beno. Vayikra elav, here comes the angel to save everything. Vayikra elav malach Adonai min hashamayim. Vayomer Avraham, Avraham. Vayomer hineni. Vayomer al tishlach yado Yadcha al hana'ar v'al ta'as lo me'uma ki ata yadati ki yir'eh Elohim ata v'lo hashachta et bincha et yechidcha. And let's do the blessing together. 1, 2, 3. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Are you starting with Vayikra?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so that is going to be, let's see, down here. Vayikra might be on the next page. Up here. Talk amongst yourself as we fast forward in the Torah here. Let's see. It is. You're doing the end there, right? Yeah. So you're going to be. Let's see. V'yikra Avraham. Is it their Shem? No. Is this your spot here?
No.
No. Let's see here. Do you remember if it was in this section? Let's see here. It's got to be before this. All right, I'm going to let you keep looking for 1 second. Let me start the blessings while you look and find your section there. And we'll get back to that in 1 second. I want to ask anyone who did any kind of volunteer work this year. Anyone do volunteer work? If you'd like to rise, and then we will do the blessing together, or just spiritually rise. We'll join together. 1, 2, 3. Baruch et Adonai. All right, let's. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. I'm looking for a Vayikra, right? Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher B'charbanu Mikol Ha'amim Natan Lanu et Torato Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Amen. You may be seated. All right, we may have to get the book out. Let's see here. If I can I get in here for one quick second and see? Let's see. You know, why don't we do this? You want to do it from the text, and then and I'll point over there while you do that.
Okay.
All right. All right. Whenever you are ready.
Okay. Vayikra malach Adonai el Avraham shenit min hashamayim vayomer binishbati neum Adonai ki yan asher asita et hadavar hazeh v'lo hasachta et bincha et yehidecha ki varech averechecha v'harba arbe et zarecha kechochvei hashamayim v'chachol asher al sfat hayam vayirash zarecha et sha'ar oivav v'hitbaruchu v'zarecha kol goyei haaretz ekev asher shamata bekoli vayashav Avraham el ne'arav vayakumu vayelchu yaktav el Be'er Shava vayeshev Avraham biver Shava.
Beautiful. And we'll do the blessing after. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Yasher koach. And we found it. All's well that ends well. We are going to invite everyone to please rise as we're going to invite Nick to lift the Torah for us as we sing together V'zot HaTorah. V'zot HaTorah asher Moshe B'nei Yisrael al pi Adam Ya la 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 la. You may be seated. Anyone who's wearing an Apple Watch, I'd like to know what your heart rate is at the moment. I think I'm at like 130 beats a minute. So you saved it, Nick. It was good. All right, what we're going to do is turn to our prayer for healing, our Misha Berach Lecholim. You can find that just a couple of pages ahead. Oh, I guess we need Nick for that, huh? All right, I'll take the Torah.
It's your turn.
All right.
I think we're doing it afterwards.
Okay. We're going to sing our Misha Berach prayer, our prayer for those who are in need of healing. And I'm going to invite, if anyone has someone who you're thinking of who is in need of healing of body or of spirit, that you can go ahead and say it aloud. When you have a name of someone. We'll join together in singing then Misha Berach, offering this prayer of healing. Going to keep holding the Torah scroll for a little while. This is my fault for not arranging to have any volunteers up here, so next year we'll go back to that. We're going to turn to the second section of reading of the Shofar, and you can find that on, the sounding of the Shofar, I should say. You can find that on page 263. I'm sorry, actually 267 is what I meant, 267. And we are going to invite Lindsay to join us on the bima. And Barry is saving the day. All right. You're in the book of life. There you go. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So, Lindsay, will you actually go like in the middle of the congregation there? Because I know we have these big columns that are sometimes can be, and you can turn to see Lindsay. This way everyone can have the full experience. Oh, sorry, tech team. I didn't mean to throw that at you. See if you can follow her with a camera there. So we are going to read in the middle of the page together on 267. Let's read together. God of remembrance, remember the covenant of our ancestors. We reaffirm it today. Remember, we are a people of noble ideals. Help us to attain them. Remember all your people, all the nations on the road to peace. Bless their efforts. Remember with mercy the binding of Isaac, the sorrow of Sarah, Abraham's words, here I am. Our memory fades, but you remember all that we have forgotten. Your presence is a throne where all the things matter and nothing is lost. Baruch atah Adonai, Zocher habrit. Blessed are you, Adonai. You remember us, the covenant. You remember us. And I'm going to have everyone stay seated just because, so everyone can see Lindsay. So we'll join together in singing on 268. Tekiah. Shevarim Teruah. Tekiah. Tekiah. Shevarim. Tekiah. Tekiah. Teruah. Tekiah. Yasher Koach, beautiful. Stay close by for the third one, and whenever you are ready. Now we'll invite you to please rise. We're on page 276 as we return the Torah to the Ark. Hallelujah. Shema Adonai ki nisgav shemo levado. Hodo al eretz v'shamayim v'yarek keren le'amo tehivarecho hasidah b'fnei Yisrael am kerovo.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
L'machasikim ba v'tomchecha me'ushar urachecha darchei noam v'chol netivotecha shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha nashuva Kaddish Kaddish Aleinu Kaddish Aleinu
You may be seated. And we have, we're going to sing Return Again, this trope of our high holiday season, as we return to that best version of ourselves. Then we have one more shofar blasting and then lunch.
It's a long service.
284. We will invite you to rise this time. Baruch atah Adonai shomea kol teruat amo Yisrael barachamim, and we'll join together. Tekiah, Shivarim teruah. Tekiah, Tekiah, Shivarim. Tekiah, Teruah. And here's the big one. Tekiah Gadolah. Whoa, Lindsay. She's got the lungs. Hayom Hara, Olam, Hayom Hara, Olam, Yalla la 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 la, Yalla yalla la, Yalla la 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 la, Yalla yalla la, Hayom Hara, Olam, Hayom Hara, Olam. We're going to stay standing and turn in a moment to our Kaddish prayer, which you can find on page 292, our prayer for remembrance. And if there's someone who you are thinking of on this Rosh Hashanah, someone who you're particularly missing, or perhaps even if it's someone's yahrzeit, if you'd like to shout their name out, this would be a nice time to remember them in our congregation. I'll start this way. You can go ahead and shout a name out if you'd like. Any other names? On their behalf and on behalf of all those who have no one left to say Kaddish for them, we turn to page 292 and read our prayer together. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyamechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'yizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lamei almaya, Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudasham barichu le'elam minko birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehesh lama rabba min shemaya v'chalein v'kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'imromav hu ya'aseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May be seated. I've just got a very quick closing story here, and wanted to tell you after this service is over, there is a brunch downstairs in the social hall, and you're welcome to enjoy that. If you'd like to join us outside, there is another service that begins at 11:30. If you didn't get enough in here, there is their Shir Shirim service with our band, and a completely musical service at 11:30 outside, and then Tashlich is going to be at 2 o'clock p.m. Right out at the stream here. Tashlich at 2 o'clock p.m. Also, day 2 of Rosh Hashanah right in this room tomorrow, if you'd like to come at 10 a.m. I want to close with one of my favorite stories. It's a sweet one to close our service and to welcome in 5783. A woman once wrote about her teenage daughter. As she grew older, her teenage daughter became increasingly rebellious. It culminated one night when the police arrested the daughter for drunk driving. The mom went to the police station to pick her up. They didn't speak until the next afternoon. Mom broke the tension by giving her a small gift-wrapped box. Her daughter nonchalantly opened it and found a rock inside. She rolled her eyes and said, "Cute, Mom, what's this for?" "Read the card," her mother instructed. Her daughter took the card out, read it, and tears started to trickle down her cheeks. She got up and hugged her mom, and the card fell to the floor. On the card were these words: "This rock is more than 200 million years old. That is how long it will be before I give up on you." On this Rosh Hashanah, let us not give up on ourselves. May we reach out a hand to someone in need. May we tell our stories to one another and hold them dear and keep them going in generation after generation. In this season, may we apologize and forgive, and may we leave this sanctuary this morning renewed in life as we begin 5783 in goodness. We join together our closing song, Adon Olam. It's on page 298 if you want the words.
Adon Olam, Hashem Allah, the Terem Kol, it's Yirikah, Yet Nasa, Lechem Sokol, Azai Melech, Shemo Nikra, Shana Tova, everyone. May this be a year of blessing and goodness.